Hello students and welcome to the lecture. So students, as we know that we are covering the scheduled and the tribal areas, right? This is the topic on which we have been discussing right now. Basically within this particular series of the scheduled and the tribals, okay? Scheduled and tribals, these all are the topics that we had scheduled for the discussion, like the introduction part, like the scheduled areas in India, an overview of them, like the criteria for the identification of scheduled areas, write the constitutional provisions and the governance, like the concerns related to the scheduled areas, the administration of the scheduled areas, the scheduled tribes, okay, general concerns of the tribal community, addressing the challenges, significance of the indigenous communities, problems that are being faced by the tribal groups, conclusion, and the administration of the tribal areas. Okay, so these are the topics we had scheduled for the discussion. If we talk about the topics we have covered so far, if we talk about them, then basically we have done with the few topics like the introduction part, we have completed it. Like the scheduled areas in India, an overview of it, we have completed. Criteria of the identification of scheduled area, constitutional provisions and the governance, concerns related to the scheduled areas, administration of the scheduled areas, scheduled tribes. These are the topics that we have completed so far, right? If we talk about the topic on which we have been discussing, so this is the general concerns of the tribal community. Okay, general concerns of the tribal community is the topic on which we have been discussing right now. Okay, and basically if we talk about the topics we are left with, then these are the addressing the challenges, significance of the indigenous communities, problems that are being faced by the tribal groups, conclusion, administration of tribal areas. Okay, so this is the picture that we have created so far altogether. Basically in this lecture we will start from where we had left in the previous one. Okay, so in the previous lecture, under the series of the scheduled and the tribal areas and the topic of the general concerns of the tribal community. Okay, what we had started? We had started the discussion over the poverty concerns that the tribals and the scheduleds are having. Okay, and the one thing that we had discussed there was the economic marginalization, in which we had first discussed the meaning of marginalization and then connected with the economic. Okay, like the economic marginalization. Okay, this is the topic we had covered there. If we talk about it, then basically we had discussed the limited economic opportunities, right? We had discussed about it, and basically we had discussed when we talk about the indigenous communities. So they often live in the remote and the backward areas, okay, where the access to the market is limited. Okay, and when the market access is limited, so as a consequence of this, economic opportunities are also limited, right? Because of this, their ability to participate in the broader economy or the national economy is also being threatened. Thereafter, the informal economy. Okay, like basically we had discussed about the informal sector. Okay, and I had told you that I will explain you this in this lecture. Okay, so basically if we talk about this one, so there are two sectors in the economy, formal sector and the informal sector. How many sectors? Two sectors, formal sector and the informal sector. When we talk about the working and the livelihood, the formal sector is the sector when the employer and employer is the one who is providing the work, employee is the one who is getting the work. Okay, they both are legally binded. Okay, the employee will have all the rights that are legally available for him. Okay, all the employment benefits that are applicable to him, and basically his job stability is adequate, and even the salaries and wages are adequate. Okay, this is called the formal sector, while the informal sector is the unregulated sector. It means that there is no law and it is hard to regulate that sector, which means the employer and the employee, the one who is giving the work and the one who is getting the work, they both are not legally binded or agreemental basis working with each other. The salaries and wages are not appropriate. Okay. Secondly, the employment benefits are generally not applicable for the employees of the informal sector. Okay. Even the job security is not promised. That's why the two things that we had discussed there was the instability and the low paying jobs and low paying jobs. Okay. If we talk about this, the instability. Okay. If we talk about this, the first thing is that, as I have told you, in the informal sector, the job security is not there. The employment benefits are not available. That makes the first thing, that is instability. For example, if you assume yourself, you are getting employed to some company. For example, when you go there, when you give your interview and after your selection, the first thing that you will receive, that will be your call letter. Okay. The call letter is the agreement of employment. Okay. The call letter is the agreement of employment that the company has selected you for the work. The company is the work giver. You are the work taker. All right. All your salaries and things will be mentioned there. Will be mentioned there. Okay. Once you got employed, your salary could not be less. For example, suppose if 30,000 has been your promised salary in your call letter. So when you start working there, they could not give you 28,000 salary. Why? Because that amount, 28,000 that you are receiving, this is less than the amount that has been promised in your call letter. How much was promised? 30,000. How much you are getting? 28,000. Difference will be there. Right? The first thing. Secondly, when you work there, basically you have the provident fund. Okay. Either provident fund or the TDS, the tax reduction at source. These things will be there. Secondly, when you will be working there, okay, then other kind of employment benefits like the insurance and all the things will be given to you. Okay. Even the leave policies are well defined. Okay. And then your working hours will be fixed and other kind of things will be fixed. Okay. So that's make the formal sector where each and everything is well defined, well regulated, and is on the paper. When the things are on the paper, it means that the things are enforceable in the court of laws. Okay. If anything happens to you, if anything is not going as per the provisions that had been promised to you when you are getting the employment, then you could go to the legal courts and you can go for the legality. But on the second scenario, if we take up the second case, assume yourself now, not assume yourself, that will be at so much big credit. Okay. Please do not take it otherwise. I'm just not taking your example here. Okay. So just think about anyone like you have seen. For example, suppose you have gone for repairing your motorcycle or car. Okay. So when you had gone there, you have seen someone, some mechanic shop and the worker of it who was working with it. What do you think? The worker would have received the offer letter or the call letter? No. is the salary that the worker is receiving from the owner of that shop. Is this salary will be on the paper, will be signed? No. I'm not talking about the big showrooms. Okay, because big showrooms are falls under the category of formal sector. I'm talking about the small mechanic shops and all. Second thing is the wages, the salaries are basically as per the owner. Okay, for example, owner has hired some mechanic, some worker on rupees 10,000 per month basis. But after some time, the owner claims that he is facing losses in the business. His business is not growing as much. So basically, he is unable to give rupees 10,000 per month. So what he started to doing, he is now paying 8,000. Okay. So what do you think? The mechanic, the worker, the example you have seen, is the person is able to go to the law of courts and all? No. Why? Because the salary of 10,000 was not promised to him on the paper. Okay. So basically, the formal sector is for the skilled people. Skilled people means who are having some skills and all. The informal sector is basically purely based on the mechanic types works and purely based on the physical kinds of work. So if we talk about the tribal peoples, because they do not have the access to the education and all, so generally they are not so much skilled as per the demand of the economy. Okay, like they will not be graduated in the IT field, information technology. They could not get a job like a software engineer, the data analyst and all. Okay, he is not so much graduated in the BTech, the bachelors of technology, so that he will get a job in the high MNC and all. He is not so much educated like the management courses and all, so he will become a manager of some place. No, basically he is the person who is looking for the employment, and he will do any physical kind of work that requires a less of skills in exchange of some money that is required for his livelihood. Okay, and the place where he is getting the job, that is the informal sector. So that's why the two problems that we are discussing here are being faced by them. Okay, instability and the low paying jobs. Second thing that we had discussed was the landlessness. Okay, like we had seen, the lack of land ownership or securing the land tenure basically prevents a tribe from engaging in the productive agriculture or securing loans for development. Okay, so here you can say this thing is also coming from the times of Britishers. Like the current situations that the tribals are facing, that has been also considered by the Britishers. Why? Not only the tribals, even the mainstream. So let me tell you an interesting story so that you will be able to connect the things with together. What happens when the Britishers came to India? They tried to bring the manufacturing sector in the country. Also, they tried to bring the monetary economy. Okay. But when they reached here, in the initial phases, they were not so much capable to did this kind of things. So what happened? The only option they had left with is to promote the agriculture activities. Why? Because when the agriculture will be promoted, the agriculture produce that has been adopted as an tax benefits, they will be given to the Britishers. Even they will be promoting the cash crops, the crops that could be sold for the commercial purposes, and that will bring a revenue to the British government and all, right? So that was their approach. But basically, what was the Britishers noticing? All right. Now I'm talking about the general case. I'm not talking about the tribals and the schedules. This is the general. What the Britishers were noticing, that actually the zamindars were the one who owned the land. Actually, the zamindars and the landlords were the one who were owing the lands. Okay. And the teenage, the farmers who were doing the agriculture, these are basically not an owner of the land. Okay. And they know if they are not the owner of the land does not belong to them. So basically, they were not doing the work as per their capability. For example, if a farmer is growing the 10 ton of wheat, for example, if the farmer is growing 10 ton of wheat, but he is capable to grow up to 40 tons. How many tons will be added? 30 tons will be added. If we take down this example, what we are getting? What we are getting? We are getting that the potential of the farmer is not being utilized. Why? Because the potential is 40 ton. What he's doing right now? 10 ton. Okay. So the only option left with is to make the farmer agree to grow up to the 40 ton. Then only the potential will be utilized. Okay. What would be the benefit of the farmer? What would be the benefit? If the land belongs to him, then he will be benefited from it. Okay. He will invest in the irrigation facilities. He will invest in the soil conservation and all. Okay. But if the land does not belong to him, what do you think? Would he made this kind of efforts? Never. He will never make such kind of efforts. Why? Because he know he is not going to get any kind of benefit from that, because the land is belong to the landlord. Okay. So this thing was also come into the notice of the Britishers when they were ruling the country. And that's why they made several policies to transfer the land ownership from the zamindars to the farmers. Who even the Britishers did this kind of things with the tribals. Like when they were trying to get the tribals into the mainstream. Okay, when they were trying to do it. So basically, you can say on that time, the land on which the tribals were doing the agriculture and all, or were being forced to do this kind of things, that land was of the forest, and that was belonged to the Britishers, because Britishers had assumed the ownership of the forest for the forest produce. Okay, so tribals were doing the agriculture, but not up to the capacity or the potential they had. Okay, similar thing is in today's time also. Even today, the lack of land ownership prevents the tribals to use their potential, because they know the land on which they are doing this kind of things, that land does not belong to them. Okay, so why should they make this kind of efforts? Securing the land tenure is also the second thing. It means that even if the farmer knows that for the fixed tenure of 10 years, 25 years and all, he will be the owner of that land, then what will do? He will make the efforts to grow the agriculture and other things up to the completion of the term, so that he could have the maximum benefits. All right. So these two things are the one that prevents them to get indulged in the productive agriculture, or even getting the loans for the development. Because whenever anyone, not the tribals, not the farmers, and saying telling about anyone, whenever anyone wants a loan, then generally what we are required to do, move to the banks and all. Whenever we reach the bank, whatever amount we ask for, banks always ask for the security that we call it as a mortgage or the collateral security. Okay, and whatsoever you will be submitted as a mortgage or the collateral security, that thing will be of the equal amount as the amount you are asking for. For example, if you are asking for 10 lakh rupees as a loan amount, the bank will ask you something that is equivalent to that worth. Okay, and why the bank does this? If you in future not able to pay the amount back to the bank, then bank will not let you to lose the amount. The bank will sell out the collateral security or the mortgage to recover that amount. All right. So if the person who is not even owing that land, who is not having the secured land tenure, if he is going to the bank asking for the loan for the agriculture activities, what do you think? Will the bank give him the loan? No. Why? Because the bank knows that this person who is asking for the amount is not having anything to get submitted as an mortgage or the collateral security. If in the future the person is not able to repay the amount, so that will be a clear cut loss for the bank. Okay, what the bank will sell to recover the amount and all. Okay, that is the thing. I hope now the informal sector and the landlessness have been clear to you. After this, if we move forward in the topic of the general concerns of the tribal community. If we move forward, another concern that we are getting is the lack of education. If we talk about the lack of education, that is the concern. First thing that you will see here, it is quite obvious thing, that is the poor educational infrastructure. Okay, like so far, whenever we are talking about the concerns, whenever we're talking about the problems, whenever we're talking about the schedule and all, basically the one thing remains the same, that is the backwardness and the remote area. Okay, like any area that has been declared as a scheduled and the tribal area is the area that is containing the indigenous people. It is the place of residence for the indigenous people, and generally this is the cutoff area, and generally this is an backward area. Okay, so if the area is backward, obviously the educational infrastructure will be not there. All right, because education is also the part of the basic amenities or the basic civic amenities that is required for the society. All right, so many tribal areas basically lack even the proper schools, trained teachers, educational resources. For example, if we talk about the tribal areas like the northeast and the central India, okay, so if you ever go there, if you ever go deep into the tribal areas or the remote areas, you will see that not even the proper building of the school would be there. Only some kind of shelter, some kind of little bit tent and all would be there where the students were sitting down and studying and talking. They won't even have the proper infrastructure. Okay, even at some places you will see that there is a proper building of the school that we call a school. Okay, that building is a school. Trained teachers. Okay, like as I have told you, basically no one is capable to study by himself. No one is capable. Everyone requires a teacher, everyone requires a mentor, okay, or the guru in Hindi you can say, all right, to get be trained into something. Okay, so even if the infrastructure is there, the availability of trained teachers are not there, and there are two reasons. The first reason is the remote and the backwardness of an area. Like the teacher who is not belong to the tribal area, he is belong to the mainstream, and he is required to be deployed at the tribal area so that he could provide the education to the students. So the person who have been living in the modern world since the starting of his life, he would not so much be comfortable to living in the backward area. So generally the first concern is that the teachers not willing to go there. Second is the concern that the students who are studying there, okay, these students requires the special attention. Why? Because they have been cut off from the world for a long time. Okay, these two things are the main. Thereafter, the educational resources. Like if there is a building of the school, that required the electricity, that requires a table and chair, that requires the smart board or blackboard, that requires the proper books, copies, stationery shops and all, and other kind of things. Okay, so these educational resources are basically not available in that areas. Okay, and that's even make the condition worse. And this inadequacy leads to the higher dropout rates, okay, and low literacy levels. High dropout rates and low literacy levels. What is the meaning? If you imagine yourself, okay, now just imagine yourself, you belong to the good family background, okay, even if you are the middle class, rich class, and even whatever class you are belong to, you are having the resources and all, okay, your family is earning so that you are having the chances to go to the school colleges. Okay, you are having the proper school, you are having the trained teachers, you are having the education resources available for you. That's why your family is sending you to the school and colleges, because they know if you are going there, so you having this kind of things, so you could be benefited by the utilization of that things that are available there. All right, but now imagine a child, okay, who is belong to the tribal area, that is the backward area, that is lacking the employment opportunities, that is lacking the any kind of thing. Okay, his family members are hardly living on the forest produce and all, and they do not having the sufficient resources they required for their survival or the livelihood. Okay, even at somehow the person got a chance to go to the school, then he do not having a proper kind of school, proper kind of infrastructure in school. No teacher was there. Okay, no educational resources is there. So now if you look from this point of view, what you're getting, even if the student getting a chance to go for the study, even if is he going to the study, is he benefited? No. Why? Because the you can say the most basic things that are required for the proper education, that is not available. Okay, then how the student will receive the education? Okay, so generally what happen, the families of the students pulled them out from the schools, pulled them out from the colleges. Why? Because they know that the child of this family is not getting benefited by going there. Instead of going there, they will try to employ it with some other kind of work so that he could earn something. Okay, and that could be used for his survival and all. Right? And that led us to the high dropout rates. Okay, and when the person not going to the school, getting out from the school earlier and all, so that is obvious that the literacy levels would be less. Okay, so I hope the concept of the poor educational infrastructure is being clear to you right now. Okay, next thing, here is the cultural barriers. Next thing here is the cultural barriers. Okay, if we talk about it, education system often do not respect or incorporate indigenous languages and the cultural practices. Like most of the schools in India are English medium schools, Hindi medium schools, and some of them will be the regional medium schools. Okay, the indigenous language of the tribals, these are not available. Okay, so the tribal student who want to go there left only with one choice, either learning the language of the school or dropping out from the school because he is not able to understand the things. Cultural practices are also not so much respected because schools having their own dresses and all that make difficult for the tribal children to engage meaningfully with the education system. Okay, so students, basically in this lecture we have finished till here. In the next lecture we will begin from here. Till then, just revise the facts and figures we have discussed in this lecture. Be ready for the next lecture. With this note, let's end this lecture and thank you.